Hi guys, so I've been asked to talk to you guys about mindset with injuries and my personal experience with injuries. I've had a few injuries in the past from quite a few lower back issues through mainly water skiing and lifting. I'm not always perfect and I have done some low grade disc stuff lifting and had back spasms lifting. Broke my collarbone having been hit by a snowboarder. I pretty much took my finger off and broke it in 7 places and ripped the tendon off the bone water skiing as well. So I've had a few different things going on. And I did my ankle ligaments and had an avulsion fracture in my ankle. So kind of getting setbacks, sometimes when these injuries come, sometimes it's like, you just get on your feet again and then something knocks you down, you get a really good run and then something knocks you back again. And it's understanding from my point of view, I do a sport that can be dangerous. I am going to get hurt, I am going to get injured. That's how it goes. I may need to rehabilitate myself. I am going to lift and I am going to push myself. I may get injured. However, I have this mindset that, if I am, so what? I've tried. What can I do when I get injured to try and improve myself? What can I do to try and move better and get me stronger? And I think that really the discovery with all of this came when I did my ankle in. It actually happened when I was in Florida. Didn't go to hospital till I got back home, so it was 2 weeks later. Found out that I had an avulsion fracture, so just really a chipped bone. But it took 9 weeks for me to recover and heal. By this point, I'm halfway through my competitive season, and I was still managing to compete, but it was sore. And it was my back leg, so it wasn't my dominant leg. But I just worked my absolute backside off to get everything around that left leg as strong as possible from the hip down. I didn't start at the ankle, I started at the hip, because that meant that I could try and stabilize and get the ankle to do as little as possible when moving. And that was where my journey for learning about injuries and movement started. If we fast forward that, I got better at that side of things, having done my back in a couple of times, just mainly through water ski crashes. I can only really think of one proper incident where I did my back in training, and that was me trying something and being silly and it didn't work. That's also part of what we do. I was doing rack pulls of all things. I was doing all rack pulls and was trying to breathe into one side and engage the lat on one side, and it didn't really happen. I ended up just completely locking out, having a massive hip hike, pulling up, whole left side of my lower back went into spasm. But generally it's my right side that gets hurt with right foot forward water skiing. It generally is my right SI joint, sacroiliac joint, somewhere around there that gets a bit spasmy and that can hurt. And the last time, especially during the summer, that was where it went. But it was like 2 or 3 days back on the feet again, move into it, and I was absolutely fine. I think the biggest challenge within all this came when I actually had physically broken bones, so like a physically broken collarbone or a finger. Now a lot of people say fingers don't count. Man, fingers are the most painful ones ever, right? Because you use your hands for so much stuff. When I did my finger in, I was like, this is just a nightmare. You can't grip, you can't do anything, so I had to find ways around it. One of the things was, I'm still gonna deadlift. With this finger, I am still gonna deadlift. So I bought a hook. Right, I literally bought one of those hooks that went around my wrist and I had it there. I couldn't deadlift heavy with it because I couldn't grip properly. Even though there's pins and plates and wire in there, probably deadlifting with a straight finger like that, my fingers were in that position, I couldn't deadlift 100% properly, but I could move through my hips. So things like rack pulls and RDLs were great, but I just did them really light. So I think I started my first set at like 30 kilos, right? So it was really light for me, but guess what? I didn't care. It was about moving. It was about getting the hamstrings and glutes fired up, and I just added loads and loads and loads of volume. And that meant that when I could actually grip again, I came back not strong, but I came back in a better place and I'd made the best of a bad situation. When I did my collarbone, I was like a rabbit in the headlights. That thing, if I could have paid someone to heal it overnight, I would have done. I tried everything. And one of the things I even tried was electric shock acupuncture. And I used to lie on the floor in the gym for like an hour, hour and a half, a couple of times a week with needles in me, plugged into a battery. And to be fair, after 4 weeks, I was pretty good. It started to heal. I don't understand the full thing as of to like why it healed so well, so quickly, apart from being fit, strong and healthy. But what I do know is bones actually knit back together with some form of electric current. And I think that's or research says that stimulated the current there. To get me back into play. But even while my collarbone was healing, I was still doing stuff with my left side. Yeah, this was just isolated, doing what it was doing. I couldn't do much with it at all, but I still trained my left side. I still trained legs. I couldn't obviously put a bar on my back or my front because it would put too much pressure, but I was doing things like just belted squat. So elevating my feet up nice and high, standing on boxes with a belt on, with a load of weight plates, and squatting and moving through my hips. I could go down lots of avenues of what I did and all that sort of stuff, but really it's about having the mindset of, if you get injured, don't let it completely stop you in your tracks. You know, I could name some of our members here that have had this. You know, we had one guy who broke his ankle, and he was like, I'm still going to train. I just need a couple of days off, get myself sorted. I'm still going to train. Okay, cool. We edited his program. What happened? He came in his moon boot. He was doing box squats. You know, that ankle was fixed in position, and we just limited range of movement. We kept him going, so that 6 weeks later, when he came out of his moon boot, he was in a better place than where he would have been having done nothing and sat on the sofa or sat at his desk the whole time. He worked and changed his mindset to focus on other things. And it's about understanding that you're going to get to that point where you get frustrated, you get angry, you're in that stress situation where it's out with your control. What you can do now is control the fact that you want to rehabilitate yourself, you want to stay healthy. You're just going to have to adapt and do it in a different way. And you're going to have some form of psychological mentality or physiological mentality. No, that's wrong. You're going to have some form of almost hunger. You're going to have to be hungry to explore something different and understand that it may not be exactly what you want to do, but once you've done that and you want to get to where you want to go, you're either going to do it quicker, or when you can do that, it's going to feel absolutely epic. I mean, when I could get back bench pressing again after I broke my collarbone, right, and back actually like lifting properly, it was like, oh my God, this is an absolute godsend. You know, I got my rotator cuff strong. I did all that sort of stuff first. I didn't jump straight back in to do it. I did it the sensible way. And within about 8 weeks, 9 weeks, I was properly bench pressing semi-decent weights again. And it was just like everything I've done has paid dividends till now. My other bit of advice in the mindset is understand everything's a process. So sometimes you need an injury to come back stronger. You need an injury to understand a bit more about you, about how you behave and about how you react and how competitive you are or aren't. And to understand, is this the right thing for you? And like, I think for me, this bows down to, right, I'm a water skier. Everyone knows that, and I love it, and that's my sport. But how hungry am I for it? Well, I'm pretty hungry. Yeah, I enjoy it. It's my big release. I like competing. I like having a focus. Yeah, I'm not the best in the world at it, but it's something I really enjoy. Would I stop that for an injury? Hell no. Other people go, actually, do you know what? I'm going to stop this now. It's going to affect my career. It's going to affect my job. It could do, but that's a risk I'm willing to take because I know that it's what I do, it's what I enjoy doing, and that if I'm strong when I do it, suddenly the risk minimizes. And you see this with cyclists and things like that. You know, the stronger they get, the more resilient they become at climbing up hills. You see it with rugby players. The stronger they get, the more resilient they get to the big bashes, the knocks, the bumps, the tackles, the rucks, the mauls, whatever they get taken out with. And I think that having that ability to become strong and to get a mindset where you're always going to have to be striving to the next level or striving to go and do something better is key to either performing or getting over injuries. One of the things people figure is, I can't train as hard, I can't do, and they start to have that can't do mentality. From my point of view, that's slightly wrong. You can train just as hard, but you have to spend the time doing the preparation to be able to train that hard. And what I mean by the time doing the preparation is you have to go in there and see what you can physically do. So you can't go 110% as soon as you get in there. You can't go anywhere near maxes. You can't do anything like that. What you've got to do is understand, right, what ranges of movement are comfortable for me? What ranges can I load and how can I load them? Once you understand that pathway, you can then start to push a bit, because you know what you can do and you know what your limitations are and you know what your ranges of movement and pain thresholds are. So that's why when I started coming back from my collarbone injury, from having the broken collarbone, It was, okay, I can't just go straight on the ground and do a push-up. There's no way I can do that. I'm going to dial it right back. I'm going to start with pulling first. Then I'm going to start with getting my rotator cuff fired up, right? Then I'm going to start with a TRX chest press or a rack push-up, right? At fairly high level, just to get all this stuff working. But what I did was increase the volume. It wasn't the load, I just went for volume. So I was working all those muscle structures. I was working to near fatigue and getting a hard workout at the time. But it took me maybe a week, 10 days to really figure out what I could do and come up with a training plan that worked for me. Now, obviously here with our experience, we can then work with you to adapt your training and coaching program. And in fact, tonight I'm actually going to be doing that for someone I'm taking online tomorrow morning who had an injury over the weekend. And I'm going to adapt her training program for her so that she can at least move, she can get back to coaching and training with the hope of being back in the gym environment hopefully next week. You're on a different trajectory by training whilst injured. You're on that trajectory of, okay, how am I going to better myself? How am I going to get around this and improve so I can come back in a different format stronger or a different way stronger? I think that what you're almost doing by doing nothing when injured is bowing down to the injury. Now, what I'm saying here is if you're in complete injury, you can't move properly, you can't do anything like that, and you're absolutely, at that point of near on death's bed, you should be getting here. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that you should think about what you can sensibly do, make a judgment call and come along, right? I think that you should then adapt what you do so that you can take a can-do attitude and a can-do mentality of, I'm injured, I identify that, I'm not injured for the rest of my life. This is just a healing process and a movement process that I have to go through. And again, that comes back to, is it structural? Have you got a muscle tear or a rip? Have you got, a disc prolapse or herniation, right? Or is it a case of something has spasmed and it will release, but there's all these biopsychosocial factors in there. And we talked about the biopsychosocial model earlier on some social media posts. And it's a case of what's going on. And if it is the latter, where it's more of a spasm, it's a lot easier to adapt the training and coaching program. Secondly, it's actually a lot better for you to train and move through it because you're going to feel better and better every time you do it, to the point where the body just says, actually, this is good for me.